Chapter 1: The Lights Over Dry Creek. Ethan Harper lit a cigarette with shaking fingers. It was just past midnight, and the woods behind his cabin were dead silent. No wind. No frogs. No crickets. Even the trees looked wrong. As if they were holding their breath. Brutus, his dog, growled low in his throat and backed against the porch steps, eyes locked on the forest line. Ethan followed his gaze, and froze. 3 orbs, blinding, blue-white and perfectly still, hung just above the treetops. They made no sound. No flicker. They weren't reflections or drones or weather balloons. They watched. Hell no, Ethan whispered, stumbling backward. The cigarette dropped from his lips and sizzled on the deck. The lights moved, instantly, impossibly fast, repositioning in the blink of an eye. Brutus started barking like mad, then yelped and bolted into the trees. Brutus. No. Ethan barely got the words out before the air changed. It pressed down on him like a heavy fist, his ears popped, and his skin prickled with electricity. The sky split open with a soundless pulse, like a camera flash from the heavens. A beam of white light, wide as a truck, shot straight down and engulfed him. He tried to scream. He couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. His body lifted off the ground, hovering 2 feet above the deck, every muscle frozen in place. His eyes burned, his limbs trembled. Something was pulling him upward. Inside his head, a voice whispered, "Do not resist." Pain exploded behind his eyes, then nothing. He woke up choking. Concrete scraped his face. His jaw throbbed. Streetlights flickered overhead, casting orange halos on cracked pavement. He was lying in the middle of Hillridge Road, shirt twisted around his neck, pants soaked in blood from the knees down. A car honked, headlights. Ethan barely rolled out of the way before tires screeched past, the driver yelling something he couldn't process. He lay in the roadside weeds, heart hammering. What the hell just happened? His watch was gone. His keys. His phone. His mouth was full of dirt. And behind his right ear, he reached up and touched it. There was something under his skin. Warm. Buzzing. Pulsing like a second heartbeat. He stood, stumbling toward the tree line. Brutus was gone. So was the cigarette. So was any trace of the light. But in the distance, above the forest, the sky blinked once. Then again, and this time, it blinked back. Chapter 2: Missing Time. Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat in his truck outside the 24-hour gas station, hands trembling around a paper cup of burnt coffee. His knuckles were raw. His pupils dilated. He'd been staring at the clock for hours, trying to make sense of the gap. 3 hours. Vanished. No memory. No dream. Just blackout. He lifted his shirt and checked again. The skin behind his right ear was swollen, hot to the touch. A thin red mark ran down his neck, like a surgical cut that had already begun to heal. He tried digging it out with a pocket knife. The knife broke. Rachel Monroe had always been the rational one, nurse, med school dropout, once his fiancée. She didn't believe in ghosts, conspiracy theories, or little green men, but when she opened the clinic door and saw Ethan, dirty, bleeding, wild-eyed, she didn't ask questions. Inside. Now. He peeled off his shirt and sat on the exam table. Rachel snapped on gloves and leaned in. "Jesus, she whispered. What is that? The lump under the skin wasn't just swollen. It was moving, tiny pulses. Like something alive was lodged behind his ear. I've seen 100 infections, she said. This isn't that. She grabbed a light and scanned his pupils. Your heart rate's jacked. Skin's cold. And look at this. She pulled out her phone and took a picture of the mark, then she turned deathly pale, because under the skin, faint but visible, was a thin black pattern, a circular symbol with jagged lines branching out like a spiderweb. It wasn't natural. It looked, designed, manufactured, branded. Look, Ethan said, voice cracking. I didn't fall. I didn't hit my head. Something took me. Rachel didn't respond. I was on my porch, he said. There were lights. Then pain. Then I woke up a mile away, like I'd been dumped. He grabbed her wrist. Rachel, you have to believe me. I do, she whispered, then added, you're not the only one. She led him to her office. Locked the door, pulled open a drawer. Inside was a thumb drive. She plugged it into her laptop and played a video. Security cam, she said. My neighbors. The footage was grainy, black and white. A backyard at night. Wind in the trees. Then, 2:42 a.m., motion. A tall figure entered the frame. Thin. Unnaturally tall. Its limbs moved wrong, too smooth, like joints bending the wrong way. No clothes. No face. Just a smooth, pale head and two lidless, glowing eyes. It stood motionless at the edge of the yard. Then, without moving its legs, it floated forward. The screen went black. Rachel closed the laptop. They scrubbed the footage an hour later. The whole hard drive was wiped. But I saved that clip. Ethan's stomach turned. Why would they? I don't know. But they're watching. Listening. She looked up at him. You need to get out of town, Ethan. Now. He shook his head slowly. I'm not running, he said. Not until I find out what they did to me. Rachel's voice dropped to a whisper. What they did, they're not done yet. And outside the clinic, across the street, inside a black van with no plates, someone was watching through a long-range scope, and they were smiling. Chapter 3, Echoes. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed him, even as he drove, hands clenched tight around the wheel, headlights cutting through the mist on Route 6, his mind kept drifting. Back to the light. Back to that voice in his head. Do not resist. He hadn't told Rachel everything, not about the sound, a low-frequency hum that vibrated in his skull, not about the dreams, not about how, just before waking up on the road, he saw a corridor, impossibly long, with walls that pulsed like veins, and a figure waiting at the end. Tall. Motionless. Watching. The worst part, the figure looked like him. He pulled into the motel on the edge of Dry Creek. It was barely more than a row of rusting doors and buzzing lights. The clerk didn't even look up when he handed over the key. Room 8. He deadbolted the door, pulled the blinds, and sat on the edge of the bed, holding his breath, and that's when the static started. His phone, powered off, began to vibrate. Once, twice, then stopped. No call. No message, just a sound. Faint. Like distant radio chatter leaking through the speakers that he turned it on. The screen flickered. Then glitched. Lines of static and strange symbols appeared, shifting in patterns his brain couldn't process. Then, a whisper. Not from the phone. From the room, we see you. He dropped the phone. It cracked on the floor. He turned, heart hammering, and the bathroom light flicked on by itself. Ethan approached slowly. The mirror was fogged, as if someone had just stepped out of the shower that he wiped it, and stopped breathing, because in the reflection, he wasn't alone. Behind him stood a figure, tall, hairless, with jet-black eyes that stretched across its skull like wet marbles. Its mouth hung open, but no sound came out that he turned, nothing, back to the mirror. Gone. Then a scream tore through the motel room 9. Ethan rushed out, bare feet slapping against cold concrete. He pounded on the door next to his. No answer. He tried the knob. Unlocked. Inside, the room was empty, but the window was shattered from the inside, shards everywhere. A lamp was still swinging. The bed sheets were soaked in something thick and dark. A cell phone lay buzzing on the floor. He picked it up. One message on screen: they took her. His hands trembled, because he knew what was next. They were coming back. For him. Chapter 4: The Signal. Ethan woke up on the floor. His eyes were open. His skin soaked in sweat. The motel clock read 3:33 a.m. He didn't remember getting up. On the wall in front of him, something was drawn in blood. The symbol. A circle, branching like a spiderweb. Only now, it was pulsing inside his skull, in sync with his heartbeat. He shut his eyes. Silence. Then click. Like a switch flipped inside his mind that he wasn't alone anymore. Something was inside him, watching, listening, not with eyes, not with words, with presence. A cold intelligence moved through his thoughts. Like static given purpose, experiment resumed. Subject: mental instability, severe. Fear response, optimal. He screamed and slammed his head into the wall, again. Again. Again, trying to break the connection. Trying to kill the signal, but they were inside, and they weren't letting go. Then came the visions, not dreams, downloads. A woman strapped to a metal table, her eyes pried open by mechanical claws. Still alive, a newborn baby screaming soundlessly, a worm where its tongue should be, a man slicing into his own neck with a spoon, trying to dig something out, but his hands were moving on their own. Ethan collapsed. Bit the bed sheet to keep from screaming. His teeth cracked. His jaw locked. Stop. The voice dropped to a whisper. Everything vanished. Silence returned, but something had changed. Now, a single sentence echoed in his head, clear, cold, not his own. You carry us inside you. At dawn, Ethan turned on the radio. He just needed noise. Anything. Music, a voice, every station, same thing, clicks. A slow, wet breathing sound, buried in static, like someone screaming through metal from the bottom of a lake. He recorded it, ran it through a waveform visualizer on his phone. What came out wasn't a pattern. It was a face. Long. Pale. Black, soulless eyes. No mouth, just a curved line, almost a smile. It looked through the sound and straight at him. Ethan shut it off, curled up in the corner of the room, and whispered to himself, "I'm not crazy. Again, I'm not crazy." But outside the motel window, a tall shadow stood completely still, and it was nodding. Chapter 5, Others Like Me. The motel door was open when Ethan came back, not unlocked, wide open. The room was dark. Silent, he stood in the doorway, heart pounding, and whispered, "Who's there?" From inside, a woman's voice answered, "We're not here to hurt you." Ethan stepped in, fists clenched. There were two of them, both sitting on the bed like statues. Eyes sunken. Pale. Like they hadn't slept in days. The woman was maybe 30, tall, military posture, haunted face. Her left eye glowed faintly green. It wasn't human. The man beside her looked worse. Twitching. Thin as a skeleton. Scratching his arm non-stop. His skin buzzed like there were wires underneath. "We've been watching you," she said. "You're marked." Ethan blinked. "Who are you?" She looked him dead in the eyes. "Survivors. For now." The man, Kyle, spoke up, his voice shaking. "Do you feel it yet? The hunger in your skull?" Ethan didn't answer. "It grows," Kyle muttered. "They don't just experiment. They install. Every vision, every seizure, every missing second, they're building something in you." The woman, Val, nodded. "We call it the passenger. Once it wakes up, you're not you anymore." They showed Ethan the scars, not just the back of the neck, but along the spine. The ribs. The brainstem that they'd each tried to cut it out, unsuccessfully. The implants heal. They regrow, Val said. "One guy burned his skull with a car battery that he still woke up 3 hours later, laughing in a voice that wasn't his." "You came back for answers," Val said. Ethan nodded. "Then you need to hear this." She pulled out a journal, weathered, torn, soaked with blood. Inside were drawings. Maps. Equations. Names crossed out in red. One word appeared over and over again, in block letters: splicers. "That's what they call themselves," she said. "They've been doing this for decades. Across the world. 1% vanish, maybe less. No one notices. The rest of us, we hear them now. We feel them. You're part of it." Ethan swallowed. "How do we stop it?" Kyle finally looked at him, eyes wide. "We don't. We run. We hide. We delay." Val stood. "Or we fight." Just then, the TV flickered on. None of them had touched it. Static. Then a face, not human. Not alien. A blend of both. It stared through the screen. No sound. Just presence. Then it smiled. Kyle screamed. Grabbed his head, and started laughing. Not his laugh. Something inside had taken over. Val grabbed Ethan, yanked him toward the door. "We have to go. Now." Behind them, Kyle's voice turned wet. "Alien, inhuman, you are not alone." Ethan looked back. Kyle's body was levitating, veins glowing white, eyes rolled back, and something behind his skin was trying to get out. They ran into the dark, and the motel behind them burned with a light that didn't come from this world. Chapter 6, The Architects. They ran until the sun came up. Neither of them spoke, not about Kyle, not about what crawled out of him, just the road, the wind, and the fear buzzing behind their eyes. Val drove like someone who'd done this before, gravel roads. Off the grid. No cell signal. Finally, they reached it, an abandoned missile silo, buried in a forgotten stretch of Arizona desert. Inside, generators, metal corridors, makeshift weapons. A table full of journals, old computers, even tinfoil-lined helmets. Val had a name for it, the last station. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep, not with the signal scratching at the edge of his thoughts like fingernails on bone. He wandered the dark hallways, and found the room. A sealed chamber with a glowing monitor. Val never mentioned it. It was broadcasting something, not out. He pressed a key, the screen came alive. A black background. White code. A window popped up, connection active. Then, subject 417 confirmed. His vision flickered, and suddenly, he was somewhere else, not a memory. Not a dream. A place, endless silver corridors. Floating lights. Walls that breathed like lungs, and at the center, a throne, but not a throne for a body. It pulsed. Shifted. Wasn't made of matter, and then, they came, not aliens, like in the movies, they were concepts given shape. Too many limbs. No symmetry. No mouths. Just folds. Light and skin and something else. Something old. Ethan couldn't breathe, but they spoke anyway. Through him, we are the architects. We splice your kind to learn your flaws. To know how you break. You are soft. But some of you, adapt. He felt them opening his thoughts, like drawers, his childhood, his fears, his rage. This one resists. He will be useful. And then, they showed him the truth. Earth was a lab, the abductions were just sampling. Every war, every massacre, every mental breakdown, recorded, simulated, enhanced. The architects were harvesting despair. It was the one energy we produced better than any other species. Soon, they whispered, we will descend. When enough of you are ready to tear the rest apart. Ethan screamed, and woke up on the cold floor of the silo. His nose was bleeding. Ears ringing. Val stood over him, pale. You saw them, didn't you? He nodded. We're not the test anymore, he said. We're the weapon. Chapter 7, Into the Core. Val traced the signal back to a dead zone in Colorado, mountains too steep for satellites. No roads, nothing on the map, but the signal was alive there. Stronger than ever. Whatever's broadcasting from that place, she said, it's not just a beacon. It's a brainstem. We cut it, Ethan replied, we buy ourselves time. They drove through the night. No headlights. No phones, just analog maps and the hum in their skulls growing louder. By the time they reached the foot of the mountain, both of them were bleeding from the nose. A cave mouth waited, hidden behind a rockslide that looked too perfect. Inside, silence. Then static. The tunnels weren't natural, metal and flesh fused into walls, veins pulsing behind smooth steel. Somewhere deep within the mountain, something was alive, and waiting. Val's flashlight began flickering. Ethan turned to her, but she wasn't moving, just staring ahead. Frozen. Mouth open. Val? Her voice came out wrong. Don't you see, Ethan? We're already inside the womb. He slapped her, hard. She blinked. Snapped out of it. Thanks, she whispered. It almost had me. They pushed forward. The core room was shaped like a cathedral, but made of light and nerves, suspended in the center. A massive orb, floating above the floor. It pulsed with alien rhythm, fast, then slow. Like a heartbeat with no body. A control panel emerged from the wall. Val didn't wait. She started decoding. Can you shut it down? Ethan asked. I can try. But the closer they got, the harder it became to think. The orb wasn't just broadcasting signal, it was reading them, feeding. Then Ethan saw his reflection in the smooth metal wall, and it wasn't him, not quite. His eyes flickered white, just for a second. His skin shimmered, like something under it was crawling. Hurry up, he whispered. Done. Val hit the final command. The core shrieked. No sound, but their brains exploded with pressure. The orb shattered like glass made of light. A pulse rushed through the tunnels, blinding, hot, final, and the signal was gone. Silence, real silence. Val dropped to her knees, sobbing. We did it, she gasped. We did it. Ethan didn't respond. He was staring at his hands. They were glowing, veins like fiber optic cables. Skin turning translucent. His voice came out low and not entirely human. I think it unlocked something in me. Val looked up, frozen. Ethan. He smiled. But it wasn't his smile. I'm not sure I'm just me anymore. Chapter 8, Infection. They didn't speak for the first hour of the descent. Val kept glancing at Ethan, but only from the corner of her eye. He looked wrong, too calm, too quiet, and his shadow flickered, even when the light didn't move. Back at the base, Ethan stared at the mirror in the bathroom. The skin on his arms had smoothed out like wax. His blood wasn't red anymore, it was silver, and under his breath, he whispered words he'd never learned. Torkai Severin. Messel. Messel. He didn't know what they meant, but something inside him did. Val stood in the hallway, gun in her hand. She didn't want to use it. Didn't want to believe what she was seeing, but Kyle had changed like this too, only slower. Ethan, she said through the door, are you still you? A pause, then his voice, calm, mostly. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He dreamed of cities made of bone, of stars bleeding black, and of the architects whispering, we thank you for opening the door. When he woke up, the lights were off, but he could see perfectly. Val tried to inject him with a paralytic. He caught her hand midair. Fast. Too fast, don't, he said softly. I'm still fighting it. His eyes were glowing faint blue now, veins webbed across his neck like alien circuitry. It's not just a parasite, he said. It's a merge. They're evolving through me. Val raised her gun. I've seen what happens when the merge finishes. Ethan didn't flinch. Then kill me now. Or help me use it. The power surged through him again, images flashing behind his eyes. The architects were coming. The core was only one of many, and others like him were waking up, sleepers, hidden across the world. But Ethan saw something else too, a possible end. A last resort. There's a way to burn them all out, he said, breathing hard. From the inside. But it'll kill me. Val stared. You'd die to stop this? He nodded, eyes flickering between human and alien. If I don't, I won't be me much longer. Then we finish it, she whispered. Together. Outside, the stars began to move, not across the sky, toward Earth. The invasion wasn't starting. It had already begun. Chapter 9, The Last Signal. The bunker rumbled, not from within, but from above, Val checked the radar system Ethan had patched into. Signals blinked across the screen. There's hundreds of them. Ethan stood at the edge of the room, eyes distant. No. Thousands. He was no longer hiding what he was becoming. His body flickered in and out of focus, as if struggling to stay in this dimension. The architects are here. Val uploaded the virus Ethan designed at a psychic signal, an infection that could ripple through the architect hive mind that if it worked, it would erase their neural web from inside, but it had to be sent through a living conduit, someone who'd already merged. You really want to go through with this? Val asked. It's not about what I want, Ethan said, voice layered with something not his. It's about ending the infection, starting with me. She strapped him into the transmitter seat. The wires pierced his arms, feeding into his spine. His body jerked, spasming as the system came online. Once it starts, Val warned, you'll feel everything they feel. He nodded. Let's hurt them. She flipped the final switch. The screen went dark. Then, screaming, not out loud. Not human. It tore through Val's skull like metal scraping against bone. Ethan arched backward, mouth open in silence. His eyes turned solid white. Somewhere, in orbit above Earth, the ships began to blink out. One by one. Falling from the sky like burning stars. Across the world, those infected, the sleepers, convulsed and collapsed. The architects were dying, consumed by the very connection they used to control. And Ethan? His body began to burn from the inside. Val tried to pull him out, but his skin was already melting into light. He looked at her one last time. Thank you, for not shooting me. You're still in there, she cried. Not for long. His final smile was real, and then, flash, everything went white. Silence. Val woke up on the bunker floor. The seat was empty. No trace of Ethan, just his dog tags, melted into the metal. Outside, the sky was clear. No more lights. No more voices, just Earth, alone again, for now. Epilogue. 3 days later, she buried the tags in the desert. No words. Just silence, but sometimes, when she dreams, she hears him whisper, we are more than what they made us. And somewhere in deep space, a single pulse echoes back, a warning.